Oh, I might need to put on some lights actually. That's a bit better. You can actually see me. How's everyone doing? Having a bit of a lazy Sunday. That's okay. Yeah, exactly. Gonna be my last Sunday off work as well. Not really looking forward to going back to work, to be honest. I'm in vacation mode now. Yeah, starting again tomorrow. Hey, Ryan. How you doing, buddy? What time is it over there now? I think I ask this every time, but keep forgetting. When is everyone else starting back at work? 4:04 a.m. Jesus, man. That's crazy. I'm trying my best to get back into like a normal sleeping pattern. So I had a mentorship this morning at 11, and I can tell you it's a bit of a struggle, not gonna lie. But we woke up with snow. It's snowing here in Berlin. So we just came back from a little bit of a snow walk. Hey, Oki_TVS. Don't know if I can actually show it. I don't think my cable's gonna reach. Damn it. I got this nice view with snow outside. Hey, Christian. Pam, me too. Holidays are the worst. What do you mean? Holidays are the best. It's just work that's the worst. I think we got it flipped around. Don't know if I should be saying this, but it's true though. Well, in comparison, right? It's not too bad. Wow. All right. Got some good questions today, though. Not that many, but if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat as always. And yeah, we're gonna go through the community questions first, and then we're gonna go through the chat and just answer those questions. Oh, uni starts tomorrow. Yeah, well, look, I can't really complain. Like, I have flexible hours, so the latest that I need to get into work is 10. So that's probably like a whole different world compared to uni. Probably, what is it? Like at uni? 8? 7:30? I don't know anymore. Been too long. Yeah, that would be a rough adjustment. I can tell you that. Oh, your uni starts late most of the days. Plus, it's still from home. Yeah, that's true. That's a benefit, right? Like no commute. That's a big benefit. So when does your uni start then? Roughly, when we're talking about late most days. Oh, Ryan, you had to get up at 7:05. Oh fuck. Yeah, that would fuck me up too. 7 a.m. class. That is crazy, man. Maybe, well, I was just about to say, like, I'm too much of a night person. But then you're sitting here chatting with us at like, what is it, 4 in the morning. So you're not really a day person either. Oh, so you would start at 9 or 10. Sometimes I have my first class in the afternoon. Damn, that's not too bad. Most of our lecturers don't like to be up in the morning. Yep. I can sympathize. For sure. If I had the option, just move every class to the afternoon. You gotta do what you gotta do. That's true. Yeah, appreciate you being here, man. Yeah, so let's dive into some questions in the meantime, right? Again, for people that are new, feel free to drop any questions that you have, basically about anything, in the chat. Want to know something about me, the work that I do? Well, apart from NDA stuff, of course, can't really talk about it too much, but just like environment art in general, your personal work, anything like that, just drop it in the chat and we'll discuss it. Photogenic Seal, happy Sunday. How are you doing? It's good to see you again. I think with Corona is though that sometimes I forget about afternoon classes because I'm already busy with other stuff. Whoops. So what do you do then? Like just turn up in class late? But it's just like, it's like turning on like a channel on your PC, right? Just can join a Zoom call or whatever. I don't know. All right. Question time. The first one is from Guillaume. Do you think Houdini will be a must-know software in the future? The one that everyone will have to learn? No, I don't think so. I think Houdini is always gonna be left to the more tech art people. So you have like the tech artists in the team that are basically making the tools within Houdini that then the normal artists can use, which is, by the way, already like a big part of procedural tools anyway these days. Where, for example, on Far Cry 5, you have the terrain generation tools that are like fully procedural. The artist can control how they will be generated up until a certain degree, but they don't ever interact with like the Houdini procedural stuff itself. So I think that is somewhat going to be the extent of it, where as a normal artist you won't be dealing with like Houdini, but you have the option to if you want to go more into like a technical art perspective. Yeah, even if we look at just the modeling tools, right? I think the industry is moving towards more and more program agnostic modeling, where it doesn't really matter which program you use, but it matters what it spits out. And most of the time that's an FBX or like an OBJ. Most of the time it's FBX. And that's what we're already seeing in the industry right now, where some companies are adapting to Blender, or like seeing if Blender can be like a good fit in their pipeline. But I think more and more companies will look towards like being just program agnostic. It also makes it easier, right? Just because, say you want to hire like an environment artist and your pipeline is fully in Maya, for example, and that person is really good at what they do, but they only know Max, is just like, okay, like you know that they can roll over to like Maya should they want to. That's like the first question. But it's also going to take them time. Whereas with just an FBX pipeline, you could just have them do the best work that they could do, not lose any time on like trying to learn a new program. They will probably need to spend a little bit of time getting used to like the new pipeline and how to import and export, and how to set it up properly. Right? There's always some stuff that you need to learn for the pipeline, but it wouldn't be as big of a hassle when they actually need to fully switch to like a new program. So yeah, I don't think so. I think just normal modeling like we have it now is always going to be a part of it. That's not to say that node-based modeling and more procedural modeling is definitely going to be more prevalent in the future, because we're already seeing that being implemented within Blender, for example, too, where they do have some tools being started up to facilitate like procedural and like node-based modeling too, where you could, I'm probably looking at what, like the next couple of years, just having a combination of the two, where I'll do a lot of my modeling just still manual, but then use nodes to speed up like certain sections of the modeling. And then maybe at some point I'll just completely flip to node-based modeling. It will basically be, you know, it now. But then there are still going to be things that are going to be quicker to do manually, right? It's the same thing for texturing right now. Like Substance Designer is like a really good tool, but there are still things that I can do quicker just by, I don't know, like more recently, like doing simulations or modeling it by hand, doing quick high poly sculpt pass over it, and then that's it really. So it's another tool in your belt, right? If you know it, you definitely have a big advantage to compare to other people that don't know it, because it's not something like, you're not moving sideways. This is like an additional skill set that you have, but it's not necessary, not at this point at least. So that's a really good question. Leon, sometimes it depends on how late I am. Sometimes I join in late, and sometimes it's already over by the time I noticed. I mean, those sound like some pretty good classes that are already over by the time you notice. All right, next question from Subham Tripathi. I have seen many environment artists design their own materials for their portfolio projects, but when you work in a gaming studio, especially some big names like Ubisoft, Naughty Dog, etc., they have specialized material artists. Yep. My question is that as an environment artist, to what extent are you supposed to know about material creation using software like Substance? And also, when you work on a project for your portfolio, is it good to use a material created by someone else, like from the marketplace? What kind of impression does that leave when you apply for a job showcasing your portfolio? Yeah, this is a big question, right? Let's divide this up into like multiple sections. Hey, Shanatic, how's it going? Depends on how stuck I am in your stream. Whoops, sorry, man. Sorry to distract you. So the first section of this question, right? Like, my question is, as an environment artist, to what extent are you supposed to know about material creation? It depends what kind of job you're looking for, because environment artist is seen as this umbrella, right? And within that, the umbrella of environment artist, you have the stuff that you talk about, like you could be like an environment texture artist, or you could also be a level artist, for example, who's specifically focused on creating really nice locations that tell stories, and you need to be more involved with storytelling and narrative when it comes to that. But if you want to become that kind of artist, you don't need to learn anything about material creation. That being said, it's always good to at least have a basic understanding of all the aspects that come into like environment art creation, because you might be like from like a studio perspective, if you look at your own portfolio and try to be like really objective. This is like an exercise that I always try to do when I look at other people's portfolio too, is what do they see? What do they see on your portfolio, and what are you marketing yourself as? And if they can see beautifully created environments, but you haven't done any of the material creation yourself, then you're showing off that you can model, but you can't texture. Or like, you know, your texturing skills are limited to where you can actually apply it to your models and not actually create the materials yourself. So they know that you're not suitable for a texture artist position, but they do know that you're suitable for a level artist position, where you might have to where you have to create your own environments and dress them up with the materials that are already made in-house by other texture artists, like you mentioned. So that's, you kind of have to look at it in that objective manner. So if you choose not to create materials, that is a choice that might limit your potential skill set for getting into the industry. So it's going to make you more specialized in, for example, this example that we're talking about, the level artist role, where you're more the builder of the environments themselves. Like, you don't want to do the creation part of the materials, you like the implementation step of it, and telling stories with all the Lego bricks that you get offered, like all the assets. Let's have a look. To what extent are you supposed to know about material creation using software like Substance? That's the thing. Like, if you, I mentioned this before, right? It's good to have a basic understanding though, because sometimes there might be, I'm just naming something, right? There might be something off about the material, or like you're using it in a way where it shouldn't be used because you don't really know how to use materials. So it's still good to have that basic understanding. Let's have a look. Also, when you work on a project for your portfolio, is it good to use materials created by someone else, like from the marketplace? Yeah, again, say if you want to focus on the level artist position, then you could do that. But just keep in mind that you're limiting the potential skill set that you're showing off to your potential working position, right? There's nothing wrong with it. I've seen a lot of people using mega scans in their portfolios, and then if you look at those pieces, it's more focused on like I said before, the set dressing, the composition, like how to use lighting, that comes more into play than the actual material creation. I've seen a lot of people use mega scans for foliage, for example, where they know they have all the skills that they need to build a good portfolio, like a portfolio piece when it comes to a hard surface or like more man-made kind of structures, but they lack the skills to do like the more organic stuff, and then they can supplement that skill, or like they want to, they see it from like an artistic perspective, and they see like, look, this is like a really nice building, but I want to make it like that little bit extra special, like maybe like some grass growing here, like in the crevices of some of the stones. They know that they need to achieve that goal, but they don't have the current skill set to get to that goal. So then you might begin to supplement it with stuff from the marketplace or from Quixel Mega Scans. So yeah, it is definitely a case by case basis. but I would always say have a basic understanding of everything first. Like even if you don't know how to create foliage, like it doesn't really take too long or too big of an investment to at least get to grips with, say, something simple like grass. If you know how baking works, if you know how the high poly to low poly pipeline works, like baking down grass should be super simple. There's gonna be tweaks to like the density of the grass, and there's gonna be iterations involved in it, but it shouldn't be that big of a leap. When we're talking about trees, that's like a whole different beast, because then we're talking about like a completely different pipeline. But grass should be pretty simple. Just make an atlas with grass, for example. Yeah, I hope this is useful information. I know it's never black and white, and I also never try to present it as black and white, right? Because that's when it becomes dangerous. So I try to see it more objectively from what are you trying to show to your potential dream working place. So let's say what am I thinking about as an example? You could pick like any place, right? It doesn't really matter which place. You know that you have to have like a specific kind of skill set for that place. Or like if you just look at the projects that they're working on, just trying to make sense of this in my head. But yeah, I think going back to the question though, I got off on a bit of a tangent. You can use materials, or you can use anything that you want on the marketplace. For example, if we flip it, then you could see a texture artist using blockouts or models from an environment artist that they bought from a store, like the marketplace, for example, that they then use to texture on top of, so that they can purely focus on like the texturing instead of the actual creation part. And then the last part of this question: what kind of impression does that leave when you apply for a job showcasing your portfolio? Well, that's partially what we talked about before, right? You always have to look at your portfolio as, well, basically your resume. It's looking at it objectively from like, what kind of skills am I showing off in my portfolio, and how does this translate towards my potential employer? So I mean, this is a really stupid example, right? But if say you're a character artist, or you want to be a character artist, and you only have environments in your portfolio, you're not a character artist, you're an environment artist. It's simple as that. Because your work is gonna do the talking for you. And the same can happen, say if we look into the environment art umbrella, that you call yourself an environment artist, but then you only have like material spheres on your portfolio, then you're a texture artist, or like a material artist. You gotta show off what you want to work on. So I hope that helps, man. I really hope it does. What's going on here? Wonder how long these Xmas emotes changes will last. You got 8.3 million points. Are you kidding? I think there's something off with my balancing of points then. That must be. 8.3 million points is quite crazy. And then probably like to adjust an emote is probably like 100 points or something like that. Right? I might need to look into that. Hey, Shanatic, thanks for the follow. 900 points. Okay. Still something off in my calculations then. Yeah, she's What? Oh, you're talking about K instead of mil. Yeah, I was quite surprised by that. Oh, okay, yeah, the translation. Okay, that makes sense now. I I was under the impression that you had like 8.3 million points. That would have been crazy, honestly. Pam is hacking. Yeah, I think so many hours watching. I think Pam is an android. I think we talked about this a couple of times, right? And I think it's true. That's the only way that she can get so many points. Come on. Fucking sunglasses. Yeah, if this is the thing, like I wanna have more emotes for this channel, right? But I'm so bad with them. So if anyone wants to give like emotes a shot and just where's the non-emote? Oh yeah, I couldn't find the source file for that one. I'll need to get that one back. It's a good one. My most on any channel is like 40k, and that's at about 3 days of watching. Damn. All right, let's dive into your question next, Ryan. How do you know when you're ready for your first job? I feel like skill level varies so much when it comes to junior artists that it's hard to determine a good point to start focusing on applications. Before we dive into this, did I make the non emote? No, that was someone else actually. But we should get that one on here. That would be awesome. Yeah. Anyway, that's a really good question. Really good question. Because I don't think there's a clear answer to that. Because it's like you said yourself, right? The skill level varies so much, and like not only the skill level from like the artist perspective, but also just the applications and like the skill, the breadth of skill that the industry is looking to hire too. Where for a lack of a better term, some companies have they just have a different standard. Like when they're looking for new people, they might look to juniors instead of only seniors, right? If you wanna look at it like that. And even within juniors, they might look for what would you call it? Like higher ranking juniors. They only pick like the top quality basically. So there's like a lot of variation within that already. And then let's have a think, because I do want to give some advice here too, right? Tricky one. What would be a good moment to start applying? I basically started applying when I had 4 pieces in my portfolio, I think. And looking back at it now, they were nowhere near the standard that I'm seeing from some people in the community right now. I'm gonna be honest. It was also a different time, right? Tools have become way more accessible. There's all those things that you have to keep in mind too. But I would definitely say if you have like a couple of portfolio pieces in your portfolio, then you should start applying. And if they're actually, I want to say, if you spend a decent amount of time on it. The reason why I say time is because I don't want to say that you think are good enough, because a lot of people struggle with that imposter syndrome, where they will never feel like their work is good enough. But that is a fake standard to hold yourself to, because if you can't see your work objectively, then you don't know what's good and what's not good. And then they're also the comparisons are being made by comparing it to like what the industry standard is, or like what the best people are currently doing on ArtStation, for example. And that is quite an unrealistic expectation to set yourself. So yeah, it's a tricky one, because there's so many ways that I could try to explain it. Like, for example, I could say whenever you're comfortable, but then there are people that are never comfortable with like reaching out. So it is a hard question, but it's a good one though, and I don't mind discussing it at all. But yeah, I'm thinking about what could be the best advice that I can give, and it is probably the one that's related to time. If you spend a lot of time working on your projects, especially for an environment artist, right? Because those projects always take a lot of time, and you have a couple of those, I would start reaching out. That number can also be the number of like the amount of portfolio pieces that you actually need on your portfolio could also be one. There are people that got into the industry with one portfolio piece, but then relating it to time again, and that time spent on that one piece needs to be way more, because it needs to make up for the fact that you don't have like other pieces that could support your portfolio too. But it is like you said, skill level varies so much to juniors. Because like we're obviously biased from like an application perspective to only pick the best people out there, right? It's not only the best when it comes to hard skills, by the way. It's also the best from like team fit and all those soft skills too. I feel like I would never apply if it was up to me, because I'm so hard on myself. I see some environment artists that are absolutely amazing that just got their junior role jobs, and it's slightly discouraging if I compare myself. Yeah, exactly. And that's also why I don't want to say, I also don't want to give you advice where you can be your own downfall, if that makes sense. I want to take you out of the question, which sounds kind of weird, but if I just were to say, for example, that probably the worst thing I could say is like, oh, just apply when you're ready, because you probably never feel ready. And yeah, exactly, there's always someone better, but it's easy to say, but it's hard to understand that. Yeah, and I think when I look back at my personal personal journey into the industry, yeah, just thinking back at when I was in uni, I wasn't really, I didn't feel good about my work. That was one thing. Well, I felt okay about it, but I wasn't really like oh my god, I'm the best, like I can get any job. That was not part of my my thinking. I was like, okay, I think this is good enough, but I also was never surrounded by, like, ArtStation wasn't that big of a thing yet, right? So I wasn't really surrounded by all the other people that were churning out amazing work and like being really intimidated by that. And I think that just factors in with so many people these days, where they browse ArtStation and all they see is these amazing environment pieces, and they just get intimidated and like slightly discouraged, like you said, Ryan. So it's a new game with like new rules at the moment, and that's why I want to say time. look at the time spent on your environments, or just like your portfolio in general. You could look at that too, right? But yeah, then there's the other thing too, right? Where what amount of time are we talking about? It's like there's no number to it. So it's a really tricky one. But I would say if you have a couple of pieces in your environment, start applying. Like, don't hold back. Don't be super hard on yourself, and don't get discouraged by your own view of your portfolio, because it's basically like you're working on your environment, and you're working on it day in day out so much that you can't even see at some point you can't even see what you're doing anymore. Like, you don't even know what's making a difference. You need to take a step back and like objectively like evaluate all the stuff that you're doing. I think you have to do the same thing with your portfolio. And like maybe after every big piece that you do, it's like take a step back, take a week to think it over, like ruminate about what you've done. Think about what we mentioned before with the previous question. Think about what you're showing off, and if that aligns with what you want to do. Yeah, it's a good one though. It's a good question. ArtStation is a blessing and a curse. Honestly, I don't look at ArtStation anymore. The reason why, well, I don't look at ArtStation anymore because the only reason why I still do it is to look at other people's work that I can put on the weekly blog, and that's the only reason why I use ArtStation. Because I know that it's just a big distraction otherwise. Yeah, no worries, Ryan. It is a difficult question, and you feel it in the force. It is a difficult question, and I don't think I can give like 100% concrete example or like complete guideline. It is the best thing I can do is probably say like, look, if you have like a couple of pieces on your portfolio, that's a time to just start reaching out, because you could be working endlessly. Like if you're trying to hold yourself to that high quality bar, you could keep yourself on it endlessly. And there's probably people, because we're only talking about the people that are quote unquote above you artistically, right? But there's also people below you, quote unquote artistically, that the reason why I say quote unquote is because like art is such a difficult thing to quantify, right? Like what makes good art? Like we can break it down into fundamentals, but it's also personal too, where some people that you might think that are not as good as you, if you were to compare them, they could still get a job because they might be more out there. They might be like reaching out to studios. They might be getting into contact with people that might forward them. There's so many factors that come into it. So got a couple of good pieces. Just start doing it. Start doing it, man. And well, here's also the thing, right? Like I've worked with you can see this from both angles, where it's like I've worked with people that are less good as me artistically, I would say, but they're way better in other stuff that they do. So you never know. Maybe they're like still finding their way, like they're still trying to get into the industry at the same time, and they might get that job before you because they have like different skill set. And that's also the thing. I know that this is turning into like a little bit of a rant, right? Almost. But if you look at ArtStation, you don't know what the people are doing. Like, you know, you only see the people that do highly specific stuff. Like, for example, the people that are in like the top right now, that's because they're doing highly specific stuff. Where if you don't like doing like highly specific stuff, then why should you care? That's like a completely different path that they've taken. And that's also where I compare myself, right? It took me a long while to actually see that, but I never felt 100% complete when I was just focusing on like one prop, for example. I would always be jumping around doing like, oh, maybe I'll do a little bit blueprinting today. Maybe I'll do a little bit of like particle effects. Maybe I'll do a little bit of coding. Like, I know a bunch of stuff about a lot of stuff. That doesn't mean, and that probably means that I'm less good in like my one skill, but I'm way better in like the generalistic side of stuff. Yeah, man. I hope that answers the question. Or like, I hope you got anything out of that ramble. Let's have a look. So these were all the questions from the community. So we can dive right into the chat questions now. So if you have any questions that you want to bring up, feel free to just throw it in the chat and we will discuss it. Let's have a look. Oh, you had another one on Discord. Awesome. Thanks for bringing it up. Let's dive into that one first then. Bam! What techniques do you use for planning an environment and the assets you need to create? Could you share any general time management techniques? I am mainly struggling with discipline of sitting down and do the job. Yeah, good question. Let's break this down, right? So what techniques do you use for planning an environment and the assets do you need to create? Honestly, if I'm talking honestly, I do zero planning for the assets that I need to create. I just focus on the type of environment that I want to create, and then I'll just go crazy with like looking at documentaries, looking at like travel videos from people that went to that environment. And then I'll pick snippets from like videos or like reference images that I like, and then I'll start building like a generalized, what is it, like a generalized mood piece or like a generalized mood board that I can use. And then from that mood board I'll start looking at like the big elements. So for example, for the yeah, I think so. So that's what I'm gonna explain right now. Maybe there's some unconscious stuff though. So what I'll tend to do is I'll really dive into the source material. Like for example, when I'm doing this medieval scene, I was looking at how castles were built in medieval times and what kind of elements would be normal for like a medieval town. And that's where I started exploring, like, obviously you have a blacksmith, you have a tanner, you have people doing the farming and making the production for the actual food of the town itself. But then I also stumbled into like some more unique stuff, like the rope maker, and what else unique was there? Like some pottery that you don't really see that often, and like a tanner that does like all the tanning for the leather. And I basically create a big sheet that focuses on like the big things that I wanna incorporate. So for this medieval scene, it was like, okay, I know that I want to do like a medieval scene that is based in history, but I also want to add like a little bit of fantasy to it. So that's where I started to add all the bridges and connecting pieces that were based from a concept. Let me, you know what? Let me actually open it up, right? This is getting pretty abstract. I'll just open it up and just put it on screen. Takes a while, it's getting pretty big. Once it opens, I'll click it on screen. Because yeah, I'm honestly not the best at like completely planning everything in, because I kind of hate it. Because then it starts to feel more like all the boring stuff. Like honestly, when I think about like environment art creation, I think about like iterating and like picking, like looking at stuff on my second screen and being like, oh, what was that? That was cool. Maybe I can incorporate that, and I'll do like a snip from my screen, just drag it in the pure ref, and that's how I basically go through and like create most of my scene. Okay, so let's switch over. So this is basically how it started, right? Like this medieval scene was just like, oh, this is like a good combination of something small with some foliage, which I'm pretty good at. So like objectively looking at the skill set that you already have, and like I knew that I wasn't gonna struggle with any of the foliage, so that was good. I knew that I could make this a pretty interesting building, but then at some point I was like, I'm not feeling this. Like I'm not feeling this by itself. I want to create something bigger. So that's where I don't know if I can actually bring it up. It doesn't matter that much anyway. So this is sort of, you can already see this is more fantasy based, like the high roof, like the exaggerated proportions. And then I found this, which is more based in realism, except for some of these bridges and connecting pieces and like how stacked it all feels. So I was like, okay, like I think I like this more than doing this actually. So that's where I just pivoted just a little bit while I was working on this. I was just like, okay, I'll see if I can make it modular. Like use this as a base. Like all the stuff that I created here was not lost, right? Because I made tileable textures, I made trim sheets with all that stuff in mind that I could just reuse for this project. And then I just moved to something more like this. And then if we zoom out a little bit, this is like a peek inside of my brain where where should we begin here? Because this is more like specific reference. This is for like, okay, for like stone walls, there's like some pictures that I took on vacation that are like pretty interesting. And then this is more like what you would expect from like a reference sheet, right? Where it's more like specific about the textures that I want to create. Like, oh, this wood is kind of nice, where it has like the hand carved chips into it. It's looking pretty sweet. Some like door references for like the wear and tear on the door, which was pretty interesting too. Let's move question over. I don't want to stray too far, right? So this is basically a peek into all the planning that I do. Like all the planning I only do visually. I don't do anything in Notion or anything like that, because it just doesn't interest me. Like I need to have something visually in front of me, or else I'll get distracted by it. And then I just go off on like, with this, I was mainly focusing on like the big shapes, right? Like the actual building, like the actual constructions of it. And once I had like a good block out for that, I had like a couple of modular pieces. That's when I start looking into like, okay, we have the base stuff here. What can actually make it interesting? What can elevate this from just looking like a modular building set to something that actually has a story to it? And that's where I started looking into like additional references, where it's like, okay, like there's like some potato bags that could be interesting for like a farmer that's coming to town, doing like his selling for his potatoes for the day, and then going back to the farm at the end of the night. And you start building up these layers in your environment, where you use the storytelling for a good base to then give you ideas for assets. And the thing that I really love to do there is just really envision that I was living in that town. Like, for example, if I was a farmer, like what would I need? Like, what would I do to come into town to trade my stuff? Like, what would I need? So I would need a cart for sure. Dragging it into town, I would probably have like bags like this. Um, maybe I'll bring like a spare wheel. Who knows? I'll probably have like some little equipment to build my own stall, for example, where I could set up something with like some like a quick construction with like a piece of cloth, some branches, and I have my own stall. So it's, yeah, I hope this, because this is basically me opening my brain, right? And it can I'm definitely like a scrambled person when it comes to this. I tend to jump around a lot because it works for me, honestly. Where I just jump from like one thing's when I jump from like this one thing that I have is like, okay, I have the base buildings, and now I just need to focus on like the storytelling details. And then I still keep it pretty big, right? Like the big assets. And I'll slowly but surely make my way down to like the smaller assets. So for example, if you've seen in my previous streams, I work on well, right now I'm working on what is like the potato seller, for example. I don't focus on the potato bags first. I focused on like the bigger stuff that came with it, like the cart and some of the crates and some of that stuff, before I dive into like the specifics of it. Let's actually have a look. What techniques do you use for planning an environment and the assets you need to create? So yeah, the environment, just to recap, right? Because this was like a bunch of rambling again. So for the environment, I look at the stuff that interests me, and that starts with these concepts. That's the stuff that I was interested in. And then I have two concepts here for like the style or like the level of quality that I want to go for. So this was, in my case, this is like medieval fantasy rooted in realism. That's sort of what I was going for. And then for the actual assets that I need to create, it is more like looking at documentaries, source material, and trying to find like the interesting details there. Like for instance, like these grindstones, like you can make them in so many different ways, but each one can tell a story. Like if we just look at these, right? This is a fancy one. This is somewhere in between. This is a cheap one. So that tells you a story about like the kind of person that is sharpening here. Like this blacksmith might not have too much money on his hands. Like he just cobbled something together. Where this one might be like a super fancy blacksmith that has like the money to actually spend on it. So yeah, but most of the assets that I try to create come from the storytelling, where I think about the stories that I want to tell in my environment. Specifically for this one, focused on the actual marketplace. For now. And then I might move on to like a different section. I hope that answers the first part of your question. Could you share any general time management techniques? General time management techniques. I think this is the biggest thing that I do is I work on a daily basis. And I think that's also the last section of your discipline to sit down and do the job. It's, you need to turn it into a habit. You need to actually go and make this like a daily habit. That's honestly the thing that worked the best for me. Where you start small. Basically what you're trying to do with this habit is you start with like half an hour, and once you've done that half an hour, you can feel good about your day and then do all the other stuff that you maybe want to do. But what's gonna happen over time is you're gonna appreciate that more, and you might start spending more time on it. So you might go from like half an hour to an hour at some point because you got used to it and you're like building up that habit. And that's the thing that helped the most for me, where yeah, you really just try to turn it into a habit. And I think getting started with that is definitely the most difficult thing. But what I found myself doing after a while is that I sat down. I would have this timeline in my head, right? Oh, I'm just gonna do like an hour or whatever. And then I would end up doing like a couple of hours while not even noticing that it's already like a couple of hours. So that would be my my main thing here. That's the thing that helped for me, because I've also tried what's it called, the Pomodoro technique, where you work in like shorter bursts to get really short attention clips in. It never really worked for me because I like to work in like long spans. And also get to know yourself. This sounds like such a weird recommendation, right? But there are moments when I'm like, okay, I'm totally not feeling it today. I'm just gonna play a game for like, I don't know, an hour. And then usually, honestly, still like the guilt might set in and be like, okay, no, or not even the guilt, like with Cyberpunk, for example, I'm feeling inspired when I've done like, I don't know, half an hour or like an hour of gaming. I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to go. Like, I want to do some art. I want to create some stuff. I find myself getting burned out quicker when I follow the Notion or Trello schedule. Yep, that's exactly the same thing that I had. It's like I've built this like really extensive Notion list of like tracking like each individual asset and like all the states for all the individual assets. And I even wrote a tip about that you could do that, but it just doesn't work for me. Like I need to be in between states. I'm happy in that space where I don't know what's gonna happen next. Like I like just being on the fly. I use a time tracker because I'm really bad with discipline. I started off being able to do 3 hours before getting extremely distracted, and now I can go about for 6 or 9 hours, depending on how much I'm into it. Yep. Oh, yeah, if we're talking about this subject, talking about the discipline to sit down, then I don't have any distractions. Like, I've turned off all notifications on my phone. I barely have social media apps on my phone. That's also a big one. I don't have notifications on Discord. I usually turn those off, but I'll still keep it in mind. I don't have any notifications for like any social media on my PC. I barely check it. What else? Oh, another thing that really helped me stay focused is I got like cheap RGB lights on my desk, and I can set those to like a really nice and pleasant color, and it helps me focus. Like, honestly, it's probably like the thing I like the most. about like the improvements to my desk last year. So that's like a neat tiny trick. Just to elaborate on this, I think that my problem comes from the uni projects that I don't really enjoy as much. Like the projects are a thing I need to do, but I'm not fully committed to enjoy it. Yes, I understand. Yeah. What is the leeway with your university projects? Because what I did with my university projects, I tried to get as close to the edges of the rules or like the limitations of the projects where I can actually turn it into something that I want to work on. That really always helped me. So I think that my whole mood will change when I start doing personal work. Yeah. Projects are really open and wide, but I don't know. Oh, then you should potentially have like enough leeway to just turn it into something that you like. Yeah, I get it. That's the downside of it. Where if they're too open and too generalistic, then you run into issues where you get overwhelmed by just all the options. Can you give an example of a uni project and what you're thinking of? Maybe we could discuss like specifics here. That would be interesting. And then I'll just go through the chat questions now. But yeah, thanks so much for that question. That was a really good question, and I hope that my answer helps you a little bit. I feel like I'm a little bit on the ranty, over-explaining side today. So I hope you can get anything out of that rambling. All right. Leon, is there any way to get a junior position as a level builder? You probably have to be a jack of all trades at first, or at least be a little more than I just dress up levels. Honestly, you could probably get a junior position in that, but again, the choice of companies that you're applying for is going to be really limited. Because what are some of the options then? I think if you're purely like a level builder, you need to have at least, well, you need to have modeling skills, and you need to know how to apply textures to models, right? You can't just be like, oh, I build levels. That's way too specific. But if you got a little bit of that, then there's definitely going to be jobs out there for you. But not just for dressing up levels. If you only take assets and like organize them, nah, that's not gonna work. Genetic. Where is it? Wait. Oh, duck or squirrel? Oh, as a pet. That was basically my question too. I was like, oh, I never had squirrel. That was basically gonna be my first reaction. Keep as a pet. I don't know. I heard that dogs can be really dirty though. Probably the same for squirrels. Maybe a squirrel. If I could skirt the edges a little bit of that question, I would love to have what are they called? Like the flying squirrels. Like the sugar gliders. Yeah, I would love to have one of those. They look awesome. Yeah, I think so too. I think we're talking hypotheticals here. Like I wouldn't actually have a squirrel. It probably depends on the place where you live too, right? Because there are places in America, for example, where you can what do they have over there? Like crazy stuff, right? like beavers and all that are like legal to have in like certain states or something. Yeah, yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Do do do. The duck would be called Kunibert. Kunibert. It's quite a nice name. For me, a duck, but I imagine it would be like a Psyduck. What? What? You're just walking around with like a psychic duck right beside you, Lloyd. Doo doo doo. Let's have a look. Juniors who are above what you would expect from a junior then. Those top juniors I see sometimes produce as good quality as if they were working in the industry for 5 years already. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. There's some people that are just crazy. And it's kind of unfair to compare yourself to those juniors, right? Well, quote unquote juniors, if they already make stuff that is like as good as some people do with like years of experience. Photogenic Seal, can I ask what sort of art tests you've done for interviews as jobs, Tim? Oh, for sure. Let me think back, right? What was the first one that I did? I didn't do one for Frontier because I landed an internship there. At my time at Frontier, I did one for Jagex, which I failed because that was a Unity one, and I couldn't get the art style right. So I failed that one. I think that's the main one that I did then. And then when I was looking to leave Frontier, I did one for Ubisoft Bordeaux, Ubisoft Annecy, also Ubisoft. Which one was it? Oh no, I tried Massive. I tried Ubisoft Massive too, and I all failed those ones. So this was with like the Massive one was with like 1 year of experience. I think I was just way too was like way too eager or like way too inexperienced for that one. Then for the other ones, oh yeah, what was it doing? That's a good point. So for the Jagex one, that's actually on my portfolio. Let me just quickly link that one. It's tagged as a it's tagged as Unreal, but it's actually Unity. So let me link this one. It's a chat. Here's a chat. So I can't really say too much about it, right? But it was just working within like a specific art style, which I didn't really hit, and it was also just working in Unity. So that was the one for Jagex. Then the next one that I did, the Massive one, was I'm not gonna go into the details, right? Because they might still use the same art test. But at that point, it was for the Division, and it was creating like a playable space. But that's probably like as much as I wanna say about that one. Yeah, that was a time where I failed that one because I didn't have any experience with creating playable spaces. Because the Division is a cover shooter, right? So imagine you have to design a playable space for a cover shooter. I didn't have any experience with any cover metrics or how to create any playable space within that. Then for let's think. Annecy, it was creating like a little composition of props, so it was more like a prop art position. Then for Ubisoft, oh no, that was for Bordeaux actually. And then Ubisoft Annecy, that was creating like an outdoor environment. Most of these, the time frame for them, by the way, was 1 week. And those 3 ones that I did for Ubisoft were all like done in the same month, which I don't recommend. That was a pretty intense month. Yeah, I was still doing like the job at Frontier 2, and then also doing my blog and all that stuff. So no, don't recommend that one. Which one? Do we forget one? No, I think we got all of them. Yeah, it wasn't creating like a full environment. It was always like, if we're talking about the environments, it was mostly focused on just the blockouts and like the rough shapes. It wasn't like fully textured and all that stuff. So if we're purely talking about like how doable they were doable. So I think the timeline set for those things, I think the massive one was actually 2 weeks now, thinking back of it. But that one has been like a long time ago, so can't remember all the details from it or how long it was. That's what I'm most nervous about when it comes to interview process. The artist, you mean? Honestly, you shouldn't be worried about it. I know that this is like the big last hurdle for you to get into it, right? And usually the artists are way more intensive than anything you'll ever do in the industry. At least in my opinion. Because I think the biggest thing with artists is that you don't have other people to rely on. Like within the industry, you can go and ask someone else, like, oh, it doesn't work out, so maybe you can help me with this. I think that is the biggest thing that the biggest difference between just working in the industry and then working on the artist. Yeah, don't let it intimidate you, honestly. The thing is, when you look at an artist, the reason why they give you an artist is not because they think you'll fail, it's because they think you can do it. They just want to see, most of the time, is just to figure out like this one little thing that they're curious about. For example, in a case, it could be like, okay, we know that this person can do environments, right? But what if we give them a test that actually tests their modeling capabilities, just specifically that, or the other way around, right? Depends on the kind of application that is going for. Let's say if it's an environment art application and it's for a level artist, then they'll be testing you on like your actual production skills for like an environment itself. But if you get to an artist, that means that they're interested. So see that as a good thing. Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. Like all the tests that I've done, I was stressing the hell out. Just because it is like a big opportunity, right? Maybe it's the worst test. Well, it kind of is, right? It is like the final test that you need to do to get into the industry. Or like even not getting into the industry, like getting another job too, right? But it is intimidating. I get it. You'll look back at those tests and probably be like, what the hell was I doing then? That's at least in my case. Start sweating. Yeah, like I still remember like doing the first couple of tests, and it's just like it is really intense. It's really intense. But it's all good though. Like if you get to that stage, you're in a good position. Even if the worst case scenario happens and you don't get it, you can always see it as like a learning opportunity. And I honestly think that if you do tests, like even if the tests themselves change, right? You're still getting used to all of that, all of the other stuff, like all the emotions, like you mentioned, Ryan. Like it's super exciting, and like the moment you deliver it, there's like a bunch of anxiety that comes into it. But you're gonna get used to that too, where you'll get used to all the stress, like all the stuff that's involved. You'll get better at preparing for them. You'll get better at delivering them. You'll get better at discussing like what you can change, or yeah. I've been applying this year but haven't gotten one yet. How many applications have you done so far? I think when it comes to like art tests, the one thing that I can compare it with that was not an art test was the art station challenge. That was pretty intense too. Because I remember just coming home, like eating, and then just going at it again on the challenge. I've been applying this year, but I haven't got one yet. 5 to 7 maybe. Oh, okay. So you still have a way to go then. Well, it also depends on what you're looking for, right? And if you're looking to move and all that stuff. Because I think I did like 100 applications or something when I was looking to get in. Oh, okay. Yeah. That's good though. It's good that you're starting applying. That's a big step. I'm gonna do 100. Yeah, fuck it. Do it. Keep track of them though. Don't be like me and send like an application to Studio X with like an introduction for Studio Y. A good CV is a whole other thing to worry about too. Yeah, but I would say work, like your work that you have on your portfolio is definitely the biggest thing, especially as an environment artist. CV is almost like an optionality. I think. Yeah. At least in my opinion. Like from what I've seen, like I've always been interested in people just because of their work. I 20 minutes past my bedtime. I'll have a good rest of the day. Oh, Ryan, thanks so much for joining, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here, buddy. I agree, work trumps CV. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I have a bachelor, for example, and no one asked me that. No one has ever asked me for my degree. They don't care. All right. Anyone got any more questions for this session? Because I gotta be honest, I'm getting quite hungry. Haven't eaten yet today. That's what you get with shitty time management. Now just the UK will ask about it. Oh, yeah, that's a good point, actually. That is a good point. Yeah, with the UK just leaving the AU. Now a bachelor actually has some importance. Because that's the only thing where you would use it. Where you would move to America, for example. or like want to move to America. That's where a bachelor comes in. Awesome. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that goes. All right, everyone. I'm gonna get myself some food. It was super awesome as always chatting to all of you. I really appreciate you all being here, asking the good questions, making me think. Yeah, if you got some questions, I'll be here weekly, right? So you can always pop in next session and then we can discuss it. So again, thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. And then I'll catch you in the next one. See ya.